Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about some of our favorite Sam-centric episodes. Um, but before we dive into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I've been a Supernatural fan since season 3. I started writing fanfic in 2012, and as Ellis Colton, I write romance.
Okay, Kyoko.
Hi, I am Kyoko M. I'm the author of the Black Parade Urban Fantasy series, as you can see back here, and the science fiction series of Cinder and Bone, as well as 2 Marvel anthologies and a very large number of different anthologies through Milton J. Davis. In terms of me, I actually have a very late bloomer in terms of Supernatural. I did not see it until I was post-college. And what happened is I can't remember if it was right after I got unemployed and I was really sad and just really like miserable trying to fill the hours. And I go, well, I mean, this show has been on for like a decade. So, I won't run through all the episodes too quickly in my horrible unemployment time. And so I popped it on finally because I had been hearing like I kind of knew general fandom stuff, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. So I actually got to walk into like kind of not knowing a whole lot other than kind of what they look like in the general premise. And I loved it. I blew through I think the first 5 is probably what I did, which is what most people do. And then you just decide if you want to continue on from there. But yep, that's how I ended up finding it.
Okay. I'm Gail Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. All my worlds are ones that Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home with all the spooky stuff. I fell in love with Supernatural halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons before the start of season 12, and I've kind of been down the rabbit hole ever since. So let's just start with one of your favorite Sam-centric episodes and tell us why, and we'll just keep going around till we run out of time. Carole?
And I have to say, I have grown to love Dean and I love the dynamic between him and Sam, but out of the gate, I was a Sam girl. There was something about tall, dark, and dimpled that just had me. So, I mean, there are just so many good ones, really. And you can also go drama or comedy because both actors are so good with both. And I think that's been a huge aspect to Supernatural that they could bring in humor in dark situations, or they could be humorous but have these dark undertones. And because of the versatility of both Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, they could really play with all of them. So I'm going to just kind of go more in a chronological order. And I'm going to start with in season 1, episode 9, Provenance. I love this episode. Sam is dealing with, Jessica died in the first episode, but he's still, 9 episodes later, he's still dealing with that. And, feeling guilt and sorrow and grief and all of this stuff. And in Provenance, he has, for the first time, felt an attraction to another young lady. And Dean's like, yay. And for Sam, it's a chance to realize life continues. Yes, he's had this terrible loss, but life continues. He's a young man. And she is wonderful, the young woman in Provenance, and strike me down because this very second I forgot her name, and bad me. But she's smart, she's beautiful, she learns what's going on. She is told about, what is happening, and she rolls with it, which is amazing and kind of the first time we've seen that. certainly from any of the young women they meet, but even in general, because of course the whole thing about being hunters is a very hush hush business. And yet, you know, she's in it and she experiences it firsthand and rolls with it. And in many a fanfic, she is actually a character who goes on to hunt with them or they meet again or whatever. Um, so we see Sam, first of all, of course, being his wonderful hunter self, and coming up with all this kind of background information that Dean doesn't have because Sam like took art history classes and things like that, you know, in his college experience. But also realizing he's attracted to her. Just because he's attracted to her doesn't mean she's going to die. You know, he's already feeling the onus of being the bearer of death romantically. Uh, and as we see him take those tentative steps towards embracing life, you know, where he turns around at the end of the episode and he goes back and he kisses her and stuff. And it's just, you know, it's just really, we see him both professionally and personally growing, you know, in this mid-season of the first season. And I think he just does a lovely job of balancing that. And, you know, we're there right there along with Dean rooting for him to continue those steps towards the light.
Okay. Kyoko.
Like you, I think when I started watching this show, I was blown away with Dean, but I've always been an inherently shy person. And so I kind of like mentally was like, as much as I have a crush on Dean, Dean would not pay me any mind if I was fictional or he was real. So it was kind of like oh, I admire from afar thing. And I really ended up bonding with Sam almost immediately just because A, I'm a younger sibling. B, I do have one of those like cool older brothers or ones that considers himself cool. That's always been very distant and feels like he needs to instruct me on how to live my life. But really, what ended up, and we'll talk about it in, I think that'll be the first episode I choose to talk about, is actually a little bit further into things when we get to Sam Interrupted in season 5. I wanted to talk about that because that was the first time where I really just vibed with Sam on a personal level, just in terms of always feeling like everything is your fault, always feeling like no matter what the choice is afforded to you, it's the wrong one, and you've made a mistake somehow. It doesn't matter that these were the only choices that were afforded to you, it still feels like it's your fault. And then when he just kind of ends that episode talking about him being angry all the time and not really knowing why, that was the moment I bonded with Sam immediately because I have always had this burning anger inside of me for various reasons, injustices of the world, injustice of being alive when I technically didn't ask to be alive in the first place. Um, and just seeing someone else go through in obviously this is life and death to them, but I could see the reflection in my own life of places where I had no choice and had to make the shittiest decision ever, and it immediately fucked me over, and there was nothing I can do about it. I just had to deal with it. And to see him just have that realization and that frustration, even though that is an episode that focuses heavily on Dean as well, it really just, like you said, spoke to Jared's acting in general, that Sam is so many things. It's why I wanted to do this episode with you guys tonight, is that I've always felt like there's sort of this very big favoritism towards Dean, and I don't feel like it's always intended. Sometimes it just feels like it's a byproduct of the fact that Dean is that like macho cool guy, like the cool older brother. And so a lot of the other like honestly things I would consider even more intricate and detailed and nuanced aspects of his personality come through Sam for me and personally. Just because, like I said, he's not the cool one. He's the one that thinks, he's the one that's anxious, he's the one that's angry. And again, he's the one that is almost always being told what to do and struggles with his own identity because his life started with two men that basically told him what to do every second of every day. And as someone with fairly strict parents, I definitely bonded with that one. So that's my first episode. I went back, I did a brief rewatch so I could make sure I remember details and things. And that was one of the ones last night. I went back and did a rewatch, and I was just, again, very, very impressed with what it does for his character, with him confronting Dean in a certain way about the tension that's underlying in their relationship at that season. So,
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Mystery Spot. Is it has it has surprise information that you don't see coming. It takes your expectations and then takes you off to another side. But it and you've got somebody who goes into an area expecting things to respond a certain way and they respond in a completely different way, and now they've got to deal with reactions that are not normal. Um, I will say that, I love Dean, but I'm a Sam girl. I mean, what can I say? I have a type. My husband's 6'4" with brown hair and blue eyes. Um, so I picked Mystery Spot because we get to watch Sam's thought process as we go through day after day after day of him trying to save Dean and not succeeding in saving Dean. And of course, we don't realize until the very end that this is Gabriel trying to teach him a lesson. And Sam is stubbornly refusing to accept that lesson. But we really there's dark humor in it, but we get to really see the dynamic between Sam and Dean in kind of a different way. We get to see how Sam thinks through the problem and keeps trying to come at it from different sides and, hits a wall over and over again, but won't stop. Um, and so I love getting to watch Sam's thought process. I love to see him try so hard to save Dean, and we get to see how he is without Dean, and he's a very different Sam without Dean. You get a much sharper edged, much more dangerous Sam without Dean. So that is a very interesting element too. So I just love Mystery Spot. It's darkly funny and has some twists and turns, at least the first time you watch it. And I think it shows both brothers off very well to their advantage. I mean, round two, Carol.
I just want to comment on Mystery Spot
Mhm.
because that is such an amazing episode. And really, the first half of it, you're kind of buoyed along by like all these funny deaths, like the piano falls on him, or, do these tacos taste funny? And we're kind of like laughing along, and we don't realize at first even what a toll it's taking on Sam. And it's not until Dean is killed the next day that then you're like, oh shit, this has really, been horrible for him. And boy, does he go dark. I think this is probably really one of the first instances where we see how dark Sam can go. There is no humor in that man. And he's ordering the dead brother burger, as he's eating his chicken and vegetables because that's what you eat when you're like, super fitness guy. So yeah, there's so much going on in there. And as a purely scenic side note, we get Sam in the white t-shirt and the silver track pants, and yeah, he's gorgeous. So I'll move on to an actual humorous one. Let's go with Swap Meet. So in season 5, episode 12, we have this great instance where this really nerdy, derpy guy has somehow come up with this demon spell or whatever to exchange bodies. And so he leaves his body and goes into Sam. Well, Sam wakes up and finds himself in nerdy, derpy guy. And oh, you know what? He can't eat gluten, and Sam didn't know that, so he ate toast and suffered. So he's kind of like, what is happening to me? He has no clue what's going on, and he's figuring it out on the fly, which he does because he's Sam and he's smart AF. In the meantime, nerdy derpy guy gets to be Sam, and he's like, wow, look at me. I'm gorgeous. I'm built. I'm going to have the sex with the hot lady from the bar after I have my banana daiquiri. But we get to see Jared being this, being himself in this body and dealing with it and stuff. And it's hilarious. He just does it. He's like, and rolling his eyes. And then at the end where he's like, yeah, she did it because she thought you're cute or whatever. And just, your life is great and just shut up. And but then once the guy leaves and he says to Dean, and Dean's like, really? His life was great. And Sam's like, no, his life sucks ass, but I wasn't going to tell him that. So there's some great comedy moments. And it's definitely, despite the presence of the demon, a little more lighthearted. And it's fun to just see them kind of play with this, between Sam and Dean and the poor nerdy boy.
Okay. Kyoko?
I think the next one I'll talk about also is one of the funny ones. So I had season 7 Time for a Wedding because it's just so it's definitely a very problematic episode, especially now, but at the same time, it just has this kind of like messed up charm to it. That I found myself really watching it because I just thought I'm sorry, Becky cracks me up. Just as someone who's been in fandom since I was about 15 years old, and I can observe from the peripheral where I hang out because I'm not in any one fandom centrally just because it's terrifying. And Becky is sort of the reason why. Is that, I love that they characterize her as like all of the extreme fans of Supernatural. And it definitely is a lot like that if in certain circles if you're not careful as to where you're going. So I just really thought it was funny because not only just from a fandom standpoint of like the little jokes that they get to throw in about their own continuity, all those little bitty in jokes that they get to talk about by making Supernatural fictional inside of its own universe. But I also just kind of like felt sorry for her to a point, not too much, but just understanding that urge of like, especially for something like a high school reunion when you're supposed to like, everyone's fake, everyone pretends that they're better off than they're supposed to be. It is completely a performance from everyone involved. But I could see being so tempted to do that, given that he is 6'5" and fucking gorgeous. And so just like, but seeing her come around and really just dig inside herself and like know good and well she shouldn't be doing this and being able to overcome the temptation in the end. But also it really does inform a lot about Sam that he is as pissed off as he should be. Actually, he's nice to her compared to how nasty he could have been. And he even feels the urge to still try to be a little nice to her at the very, very end after it's all over. And again, he's been put through hell, God bless him. But I think that speaks to the strength of his character is that he was able to not just, punch her in the face, which he very well could have done. He was good and mad, and he should have been good and mad. That was not okay. But I think that's it. I think seeing him rise to the occasion when he really could have just gone off on her and just made it just so plainly how unacceptable her behavior was. But in him acknowledging that in the end she did the right thing, I think it's why I ended up finding that episode so charming of just seeing the difference between the temptation and knowing what's right, knowing what's wrong, and just also the fact that she sort of bonded with him as like a loser of the two of them at least is why I think I just really enjoyed that episode. I like Becky in general, even though she's very problematic, but it just there's something about her. It just makes me shake my head and chuckle of like, oh Becky, you're so
Well, she
you're
does
just
get
you're
a
just
redemption
you.
arc. I mean, she does
Mm.
get a redemption arc.
And she does get one of the early moments where she has her hand on his chest, and he's
Yeah,
like,
you're
So
so
firm.
"Oh,
firm.
fur." And I'll
And yeah,
tell you
she
what,
just provided so much humor.
as somebody who has been clutched to his chest during a photo op hug, like it's a rock wall.
It's so good. What was better was I didn't ask him to squish me, but in my head I wanted him to squish me, and he squished me. He gave me like the tightest hug ever, and that is exactly why I like to hug tall guys. Tall guys like squish you, and you feel so safe. Oh my God! So like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
literally, he just did it, and I was just like, he's a great hugger. He really is. And it was also, I'll share that. It was so funny because I like to be polite. So anytime I do a photo, I go up to them and I ask first because some of them are not hug people. And I said, "Oh, okay,
Right.
is it okay if we do a hug?" And he's like, "I fucking love hugs." So, yes, Jared Padalecki, great hugger.
Well, I'm going to go with sacrifice. This is a gut wrencher. You've got Sam trying to close the gates of hell. You've got Dean finally saying, I don't care if we close the gates of hell, if I have to lose you to do it. Stop. So here is Dean kind of turning his back on their life mission to save Sam. And Sam, who doesn't see, Sam's comment is, so what? So what if I die? Sam has lost the idea that his life is important because he's very focused on his mistakes. And up till now, Dina's also zeroed in on his mistakes. He's made some serious ones. But Dean kind of gets his head out of his butt and realizes that there are more important things, and one of them is keeping Sam with him. And so we just have so much honesty and vulnerability and a reprioritizing. They have been trying to close these gates, and so much hinges on it. And then for Dean to say, walk away from it because you're more important. It's a beautiful moment between the brothers. Um, Mark Shepard is hysterical as Crowley, getting more and more emotional. I mean, he plays that to the hilt. But it is a beautiful reckoning between the brothers who so often don't say the things they should and say things that they shouldn't. Um, and so for the truth to really come through in this dire moment, after all the fighting and sniping and pettiness, it's really a beautiful thing. And both Jensen and Jared play it beautifully, but there's just so much heart in that episode. So that's my pick this time around. Karen?
I find in Sacrifice, really it's such a restatement of their relationship because by this point, we've seen them kind of break up a couple of times, where they've parted ways or, had a schism between them. And, this is such a major moment of placing themselves, especially Dean, placing Sam above everything else. And I feel like we really needed that. It really healed a lot of uh, angst that was still lingering between them despite earlier reconciliations. This was such a much more deeply felt, and such higher stakes that it really, really resonated. And the moment where Sam, now he's already been draining himself and turns to Dean and says, "So what?" Like you almost unrecognizable. And we're not talking just makeup. I mean, yes, he was paler and shadowy and stuff, but it was the emotion in his face that just really, just completely remade his how he
He's
looks and
devastated.
stuff. And it was stunning.
Hmm.
Um, all right, so let's see. Let's do one where Sam is like super duper on top of stuff. And season 12. episode 22. So season, I think it's the season ender, right? 22, not, I don't, sometimes there's a 23, but um, Who We Are. And Sam takes down the British men of letters. And I'm going to kind of tie in an earlier episode, episode 14 of the same season, where the vampires have consolidated their forces and attacked the British men of letters. And Sam leads the defense against that. But here in episode 22, he shuts them down. They're like out to kill the American hunters, and Sam puts a stop to the whole thing. You know, the horrible British men of letters woman who is really like Doris Umbridge in disguise. He just really, we see him being decisive, a strong leader. Uh, he just has everything going for him in terms of those kinds of dynamics that, everybody's looking to him, and he gets that job done. Boom. And, it's pretty hot. But that's just a really great one because Sam is really often used to taking the strong right hand position, but Dean's usually the one taking point. And here it is all Sam. And because I think Dean is off in Mary's head trying to unbrainwash her or something. And yeah, so it all falls on Sam. And man, does he get the job done.
Hmm. Very good. Kyoko?
All right, I think the next one I want to pick is Changing Channels, just because we already talked about Mystery Spot, which is again undefeated in this fandom in terms of just a well-written, darkly funny, messed up story. And this one to me is very like they did a great job of like recapturing that similar vibe, but also still recontextualizing it. And it's a little bit more lighthearted because it isn't Dean just dying over and over in an endless horrible loop. But getting to see like I said, I love Jared Padalecki's comedic timing. I like both of their comedic timing, but he really is just so phenomenal, especially with his facial expressions. He is so expressive in certain points. There's literally, if I just even see a screenshot, I burst out laughing. But it's the one where, the when they're in the prison and the guy comes out of it and he realizes he shot the guy. He's like, I shot the sheriff, and then fucking Dean goes, but you didn't shoot the deputy. And Sam turns his head and gives Dean what I consider out of the entire show's lineup the sassiest, angriest face Sam has ever made. And I just have to applaud Jared. Like you're acting, and because he doesn't say a word, he just turns his head and is like, "I'll kill you if you say another word." It's just undefeated. And this episode to me is very similar in terms of like his comedic timing is outstanding. Like the herpes bit, I same thing. If I even see one screenshot, I burst out laughing because like just the agony on his face as he's like, and that's a good thing. Like you just so done. He's so done with everything they've had to do. But again, I also just like it because it's that funny of an episode, but then ends with an excellent confrontation. In terms of them realizing he's been faking that he's Loki and it really is Gabriel. And again, have to give Richard Sprite all of his flowers. He has done that role to death to the degree that I screamed when he was permanently eliminated from the show, just because he brought this incredible energy. But like I said, I really like that one for just seeing Sam being like how he is when he has to play along, and it's not always so simple that you can just stab something and it goes away, and they're realizing that there's so much more to the trickster Loki slash Gabriel. But also, like I said, I liked it ending on that note of drawing the parallels between what Gabriel was going through with his family and what they were going through in theirs. And like you said, the beauty of their brotherhood is that yes, at the end of the day, they're both willing to sacrifice absolutely everything to protect the world, but they still have those very human impulses to protect each other. Like at the end of the day, both of them were trying so hard not to do what they were predestined to do, given that it was so unfair in the first place. So yeah, that's definitely one of the ones where if I'm doing a rewatch, I definitely will be watching Changing Channels.
Okay.
You you just can't beat the moments like where, you know, Sam's like so uncomfortable with Dean rummaging in his trunk. Or when they're doing the CSI thing and he's got the
Mm.
shades and the lollipop and they're, got the little banter going and oh, it's just beautiful.
It's so good.
Well, I'm going to go with just my imagination, um, because we get to meet Sam's imaginary friend, Sully. And this is a revelation to Dean. Dean feels kind of, what do you need an imaginary friend for? You've got me. And Sam explains that, well, he had some of Dean all those years, but he needed something else. And torn between his dad and Dean, and not sure he wanted this hunting life. And um, Sully filled the void of the friend he needed that wasn't into hunting. And we also get to see that Sam, even as a young person, could differentiate that this supernatural creature was not an enemy just for being supernatural. You know, Dad and Dean are out blasting everything with rock salt. Sully, is clearly a supernatural creature, but he gains Sam's trust, and Sam is able to make that differentiation that it's not just one or the other. So there's a nuance there, even from an early age. And then Sully comes back because he needs help, and Sam's a hunter, and somebody is killing um, the other entities that are also childhood friends for other people. And so it's it's just interesting seeing Dean come to understand that there was this whole other side to Sam that he was blind to when Sam was younger, and that Sam was lonely, and that Dean wasn't everything to Sam that Sam needed. Dean wants to be everything to Sam, but Sam needed what Sully could give him that Dean couldn't. And so coming to terms with those things as adults and um, talking about some of that, you know, looking back at childhood issues from the perspective of an adult and going, oh, well, there was more going on than I thought there was. Or, wow, from 10 years on, it looks different than it did at the time. And you have Sam and Dean both having those moments of clarity about their, growing up, their relationship with their dad, their relationship with each other at that time. So it's a really fascinating study in the characters, as well as having the whole we've got to stop whoever is killing the Xanas, and protect the imaginary friends. So it was just a very cleverly written episode, and Sam gets to shine as, the little brother who makes good. Carol?
So let's continue in the whole childhood vein, and I'll go with after school special. So we have Sam and Dean returning to a place where they actually were attending school for a little while. And Dean back then was already, brash and, I'm hot and I'm gonna get the hot chick and we're gonna make out in the closet and stuff. But you have Sam, who's much smaller, very introverted, uh, already feeling so different from everybody else. Like I think even in a quote unquote normal setting, he would feel different because he's intellectual and he's introverted and so forth. But now, he's a hunter and he's got this secret life that he can't tell anybody about, and he's being yanked around completely outside his will and his wherewithal. So we see Sam experiencing this as a child, and super kudos to Colin Ford, who in several episodes did such a fantastic job portraying young Sam Winchester. Um, So we see that whole thing going on, and then we see, Sam and Dean dealing with it in the present day as they try to figure out who's, killing students mysteriously in the high school. That whole glimpse into his past and where he's already trying to do the right thing, and sometimes but it's still kind of coming back to bite him on the butt. Here he is facing down the bully, but you know what? The bully had a really sad backstory, and he didn't know that, and the bully had a really sad ending, and the bully's dad really suffered because he had lost his wife and then he lost his son, and all of this stuff that Sam really took it all to heart, um, and he has to kind of face his own past, and has that great moment where he's talking with his old English teacher who's like, well, in the end, are you happy? And Sam's just kind of like, you know doesn't really answer that. So that's a really interesting episode. And I think it does a lot to show us more about Sam as he grew up, in such a different way than Dean, whereas Dean was like, let me at the hunting, give me the guns, give me the girls, and just kind of rocketing through life that way, where Sam, it was a whole different ball game.
Okay. And Kyoko?
Thank you for bringing that one up. That's a really good episode. It's part of why, like, it does not matter what form of writing it is, whether it's fan fiction or original fiction. I drag John Winchester every single chance I get. That man did so much damage to these two children and a third, if we're being honest. It doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. Anytime somebody mentions a bad father, Mr. Winchester's gonna pop out of my mouth.
We call it around here John Winchester's A+ parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is literally a tag on AO3.
AO3. Yep.
John
John
Winchester's A
Winchester's
plus plus parenting.
A1 parenting.
Oh, just I can't. He was in just I think I get sadder given that Sam and Dean are both such different men, but they both think they're worthless because of him, which is like you saved the world like 800,000 times. You guys both went to hell on separate occasions to save us. And have no self-worth. It's just tragic anyway. So I think my next choice is actually going to be one of my favorites, which I wanted to say, by the way, I love Sam so much. I bought this from Supernatural at a Hot Topic. It actually says bitch, and my best friend has the one and it says jerk on it.
Cool.
The little special shivers. The real Ghostbusters. Taking it a little bit further back, that actually is my number one favorite episode, other than the French Mistake. Which, if we have time, that'll be my next choice. But if not, I wanted to give it a shout out simply because any of you that know me personally know that I have a very unusual legal name. And so I'm just watching Supernatural in my post college years, and we get to this episode. I'm having a good time, and I'm in the middle of eating popcorn, and I hear them go, Letitia. And I spit my popcorn out and go, did both of my number one crushes just say my legal name out loud in this episode? Rewind, watched it again, heard the line. Finally. So you guys need to understand, it's only happened one other time. Now I can check in case this has happened in history later, but the only other time in my life that a character that I like has said my name out loud is there's an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and the girl that Will had a crush on the Oprah episode, her name is Letitia, and it's better because he goes on Oprah and he looks into the camera and goes, "Hi, Letitia," and then he continues with what the line is. So God, I screamed. But anyway, so it was a special delight that I have never enjoyed any other time in my life, where an entire episode has the two of them just saying my name multiple times. But backing that up, it is one of my favorite comedic episodes by far, just because, again, I love that Supernatural is so willing to make fun of itself in all kinds of areas, in the good things that they do well and the things that they don't do as well. It is hysterical. So not just more of Becky, more of Chuck, all of the little just in fandom nods to things, and everything about it, like I said, I just found so charming. But also, they just wrote a good episode where they find a way to still show us all these really funny things, but it also is in service to the actual story. So they have a good little sort of like bottle episode in terms of like the episode structure. And like I said, I really like it for a lot of Sam's energy is just absolutely doneness. Just I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm dealing with this. I can't believe any of my life right now. Please let me go home and just not deal with it. And it just gives so much just wonderful comedy to that entire episode. Um and especially since of the two, he's the one a little bit more willing to listen to solve the problem, whereas Dean is just like, oh God, the faster we can get the fuck out of here, the better. So that's definitely my pick. I really, really enjoyed that episode.
I
Okay.
think you need to take that Letitia that he says and make it your phone ringtone.
I know. I want to. I should do that.
Letitia, Letitia.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to go with Man Who Knew Too Much. It's such a beautiful Sam-centric episode. Sam's wall has broken. He is fragmented. We see him in a lot of pain. It's mostly taking place in his head. So we get an idea of, what we get more of an idea of what he faced in Lucifer's cage and what he remembers from hell. Um, and we have Sam confronting various splinters of himself. And that is just an absolutely fascinating thing. But we also see that even when he isn't fully himself, he's still trying to save someone. So that is a core piece of him, even when he doesn't know he's Sam Winchester. And Jared just did such an amazing job with letting us see Sam um, be completely broken and vulnerable and um, work back up, pulled the pieces together. It was just it was a marvelous job of acting, and it was a uh, just a tour de force for Jared being a very broken Sam. So yeah, I that's a good one, even though it's very serious. All
Yeah, I
right.
love that. He makes each character so distinct, and yet they're all Sam.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
never lose
Yeah.
the sense of them being Sam, despite the fact they're all such wildly different facets.
Yes.
What
Yes.
I really wanted to touch on in particular that you mentioned there is especially Jared's acting when either he's Lucifer or the angel that takes over his body for a short period of time. The fact that both of those performances feel distinct and different, and it feels like exactly who he's pretending to be. That tells you how hard that they worked on the craft of like know each other's lines, of like the way that they say different things. It was really impressive to me to see the range of his acting when he had to, especially if like in the French Mistake where he's it's Jared pretending to be Sam, Sam pretending to be Jared, and then Jared pretending to be Sam. Like that is undefeated.
Okay. Back to you, Carol.
Oh gosh. All right, so we're talking about Sam's mental health. Let's talk about the born again identity. So Sam is suffering from massive sleep deprivation because Lucifer is harassing him and ends up checked into a mental hospital. And he's dealing with all of his own stress and angst and, dealing with the devil, and yet still finds a case and is able to help this other young woman, and that is so quint yeah,
Quintessentially.
yes, thank you. A Sam thing to do, because even in the midst of his own travail, he's helping somebody. And that's what Sam's all about. So that's really wonderful. But we do see him really driven into this horrible dark place because of the sleep deprivation and the constant barrage from Lucifer and everything. Um, that too, just such a solid performance. And uh, you know, it's Sam. That is Sam. In the midst of everything, he's going to help someone.
Okay. And Kyoko?
I think that's one of my favorite episodes from the late seasons. That was a really solid one. And
Hmm.
I did this. I remember actually posting the night I watched that episode of just like his inner strength to be going through that much and still feel absolutely compelled to help someone else. It's just like I said, why I'm a Sam girl. I really
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
adore
Mhm.
him. He's just got so much strength to him and so much drive. Um, and I think that's why I get a little frustrated where they kind of sometimes the fandom is like, well, he's not as in it as Dean is. And I don't think we're watching the same show if you say that. So since we're about to close here, I'll of course mention the French mistake because we gotta. It's the French mistake. It is. Anytime people ask me about the show, I go, well, watch 1 through 5. If you feel like watching 6 in its entirety, you can, but you must watch French Mistake. It is required viewing for this TV show. I also think it should be the blueprint to anyone when they need to learn how to do a parody of themselves. I just, the layered humor in that one, it does so much work. It is such a hard-working comedic episode of just them getting to make fun of everything from Kripke to, Misha, which I always find delightful because my God, do they bully the shit out of that. And just the script stuff. But as I said, truly Jared pretending to be Sam, pretending to be Jared, pretending to be Sam. Undefeated. I have to watch that scene where he was like, but if there's a key, then it must also be a
Bill.
lock. Just But I have to picture just how fun that had to be of you getting to just, you're an actor, so you know exactly how to do your craft, and now you get to do it badly and on purpose. That had to be so freeing for them, I have to imagine. But it is just, like I said, the whole thing with Ruby and like his completely clueless face when she kisses him, or when he looks up Jensen Ackles and finds out that he used to be on a soap opera. And he just has this puppy looking Dean of like utter panic and confusion. Just, oh, goodness gracious. So, again, I know that people over talk about it, but it really is an Emmy worthy friggin' episode. It is just everything, all the things. I always have to talk about the French mistake on SPN panel because I'm sorry. It is undefeated humor. And like I said, it was a very clever thing for them to do in a season that I go up and down about in terms of how I feel like above its overall quality. But yeah, I loved Jared's comedic timing in that
Hmm.
entire episode. It was phenomenal.
Okay. And I'm gonna finish up with Bad Day at Black Rock. This is where they find a lucky rabbit's foot and lose the lucky
Oh,
rabbit's foot, and
mhm.
then they have bad luck. And this is where Sam loses his shoe down the sewer grate, and I lost my shoe.
I lost my shoe.
And, and he and Jensen both just play their parts so well with this, with the bad luck, and then uh, you know, just trying to muddle through, and it shows the whole premise is about how much control you actually have over your life. And then it turns serious when Sam gets kidnapped by a hunter who believes that he still has his supernatural powers. And, he doesn't anymore. At least he doesn't know if he does. He doesn't believe he does. So this one had funny parts and serious parts and action and humor. And it was just it was a very well written, and it must have been, pardon me, a blast for them to act in. So I'm gonna wrap up with Bad Day at Black Rock, which does bring us to the last round, which is where you get to say where people can find you online. And if you have any new, recent, or upcoming books, tell us about those too. Carol?
I just have to comment on this one scene in Bad Day of Black Rock where Sam is tied up he's completely immobile, and yet things go awry. The air conditioner starts a fire and the curtains, and then the curtains fall, and there's the bad guys. And it's just like, he's not doing anything but sitting there. And yet all of this happens around him. So you can find me on Facebook as Carole Stokes. I'm in the TFWNC group that Gail runs. I'm in the continual group. I'm on a billion continual panels. As Ellis Colton, all of my social media links are on my website at elliscolton.com. Both of my paranormal books, The Case of Thistledown House and the follow-up, The Malevolent Sea, are now in Kindle Unlimited on Amazon. And yeah, so just find me all around.
Okay, Kyoko?
Once again, I was Kyoko M. I also want to give one shout out to the bit where I forgot which episode it is where they're telling each other what happened, telling someone else what happened, and he makes Sam all overly emotional. You brave little soldier.
Oh,
Another one.
Tall Tales.
Just need to
They're
get
talking
Jared
to Bobby
Tall
at
Tales. There
Tall
you go.
Tales. And he's like, you're like
Yes,
an
I
old
just
married
need to
couple.
It was such good time. All of my stuff is available on shewhowritesmonsters.com. I just had a recent book last year out with Falstaff Books, The Starlight Contingency, which is a love letter to the movie Titan AE by Don Bluth. And then I have an upcoming story in Fire and Ash, which is a short story anthology about dragons. It is Agent Yusuke Okamura recapturing the escaped Siren Wyvern dragon that has broken loose in Bayou Bartholomew, and he is chasing it through the swamp. It is lots of fun. And the very last thing I will plug is Milton J. Davis. We just had Terminus 3, which is a science fiction, fantasy, and horror anthology that is authored all by Black and BIPOC authors, and that just recently dropped. You are welcome to go to Envy Media Atlanta, and that's ATL not spelled out, and that will be on his website. And if you like different stories, different short stories about based in the Atlanta area, you are welcome to go pick that up.
Okay. I'm pretty easy to find online at gailcmartin.com, morganbryce.com. If you find me, you'll find all the books, and I am under both of those names on all the social media. The most recent book is Cursed, which is in my Witchbane series with Morgan Bryce, and it is, thank you, it is paranormal male-male romance. As I always say, it's the kind of world Sam and Dean could walk into and feel right at home. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up soon, so we'll see you online.